This is absolutely wild. Let's get right into it.
Do I have this right, first of all, about the George Soros takeover of radio stations? And if so, why was there an exception made and fast-tracked?
Well, as you note, the New York Post has a story out last week, or actually yesterday, that says that the FCC last week adopted an order that effectively fast-tracks Soros's purchase of these 200 radio stations. And I haven't commented on that publicly, because the fact is the FCC hasn't released a final decision to the public yet, but the reporting is that we adopted it last week in a 3-2 vote. I've been outspoken on this particular issue for the reasons that you talked about. We have a very clear process at the FCC that we've set up that could take 6 months, could take a year to go through to review the foreign ownership at issue here. But for reasons that are not sort of plain to me, the FCC Commission, for the very first time ever, has skipped that process for the benefit of this Soros-backed group. And I'll sort of let people draw their own conclusions about it, but it's an unprecedented decision for the Commission.
Never happened before.
That's right. We at the Commission level adopted one way that you can buy radio stations if you have excessive foreign ownership, which they do. And that one process is this lengthy 6 to 1 year national security review, and it's been skipped here. Now, look, a lot of these stations are probably just,
Think about that. He just said that national review for national security has been skipped here. This has never happened before. Never happened before. The head of the FCC, it's got 5 commissioners, okay? The head is Jessica Rosenworcel, okay? She's been leading the FCC since 2021. Guess who appointed her? Joe Biden. So there are 3 Democrats on the commission. There's 2 Republicans. The Democrats voted for it. The Republicans voted against it. So Joe Biden appoints a Democratic woman to head the FCC. And now the democratically led FCC is allowing George Soros to effectively control 200 radio stations less than 2 months before the election. Think about that. Less than 2 months before the election, they're allowing George Soros to buy control of over 200 radio stations, and they're fast tracking it. They are quite literally fast tracking it. It's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. But let's think about that for a second. But let's let this continue.
Classic rock or news, but not all of them.
And they don't have to be. They can switch
there's a number
formats.
of stations that, there's a number of stations that you're on. For instance, at least 3 stations that you're on that are part of this deal. Same with Sean Hannity. Same with Dana Lash. Same with Mark Levin. So there's at least some of these that are, conservative news and talk outlets.
I got to tell you, if this was a conservative doing this, I doubt the FCC would have okayed it. Any ramifications? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, Glenn, we actually have that example. So not too long ago, maybe a year or so ago, there was a group of conservative buyers that wanted to purchase some South Florida radio stations. And a number of Democrats spoke up very loudly and said the FCC cannot allow these conservative outlets to buy these radio stations because, in the Democrats' view, it could cost them elections in South Florida. And amidst that pressure campaign, the conservative buyers abandoned the deal. And so we've seen across the board concerted efforts by Democrats to sort of weaponize the government to go against conservative speech. There was California Democrats in Congress that wrote letter to cable companies telling them to drop Fox News, Newsmax, and OAN because of the editorial decisions that their newsrooms were making. We had a Baltimore Democrat prosecutor call on the FCC to investigate a local TV station that was exposing her own corruption. And so this is sort of the reverse side of a pattern that we've been living under the last couple of years of weaponization of government power, in my view, frankly, against free speech.
Now, we are told everywhere that radio is a dying medium. Why would George Soros want to invest this kind of money? What did he say in his request?
It's a good question. I mean, look, I don't know a lot of billionaires right now that with all of the options for where they're going to place their money, they're sitting around saying, you know what really kicks off a lot of cash right now are local radio stations. Maybe, but if anything, we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing a flight of capital from local broadcasting because it's so challenged right now with competition from social media companies.
Yes, that's literally the point. You are seeing flights in capital. You are seeing more money go to other venues because other venues are trending upwards in their usage. Radio is trending downwards. Capital is leaving radio compared to coming to it. And yet a billionaire is deciding to buy these radio stations right before an election. Think about that. It's unreal. And I've said this before, and the democratically led FCC is fast tracking this. They've never done this in their history before. You just heard the commissioner say that, one of the commissioners. Never done it in their history. And they're fast tracking this and allowing this to happen. Why? Since when do they care so much about doing it for the bankruptcy? Why are they doing it? There's a very likely reason why they're doing it. And it's crazy. It's crazy. The more I pay attention, the more I start to see that it seems like Democrats will do anything to win. And it's unsettling. It sends chills down your spine. But let's go ahead and let these guys continue here.
Companies and over-the-top providers. So maybe there's a business case there that they're smart enough to see that everyone else doesn't see, but that's really not the direction of the capital we're seeing right now.
And the foreign investment, do we know who these people are?
No, we don't. So the Odyssey stations went into bankruptcy, and the Soros group put together a bunch of investors to buy it out, and they've come forward and said, there's in excess of 25%, which is the threshold, of foreign entities that are investing. It's more likely than not that there's no big deal there at all, but the fact is we usually run a national security review to identify who those are and whether they're fine or not. And what Soros has said that is in the near term, they'll wall off those foreign stakeholders and then come back to the FCC down the road to run that longer sort of 6 month to 1 year process. So I think we do need to continue to stay vigilant here. This is an issue, at least with respect to that portion of it, that will come back before the FCC in the coming months.
Any idea how long it'll take before he has control?
Listen.
I think it will be almost instantaneous, after the FCC releases a final decision that approves it. They've already been sort of partly getting them out of bankruptcy, but I think it will be a near instantaneous ability to take the reins of all these 200 stations once the FCC's decision, if this reporting is right.
This is such a game we're playing here. When do you suppose, if this reporting is right, they will report on the vote that you were involved in?
I think the reporting that I've seen suggests that, it could be within the next week or so.
Okay. So this could actually take place before the election?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, I would expect that, for sure. Well ahead of it.
Talk to me about the other really weird thing that happened with the high-speed internet in rural areas.
Well, this is interesting. There seems to be a pattern emerging within the Biden-Harris administration of, despite investing billions and billions of everybody's taxpayer dollars, leaving rural America behind when it comes to connectivity. So back in 2019 and 2020.
So think about this. They're talking about rural America being left behind. So rural America is left behind in comparison to the rest of the United States. And what we're talking about internet connectivity, right? And George Soros is buying control of 200 different radio stations. Interesting. They've been lagging behind on getting that connectivity. And George Soros is buying hundreds of radio stations, or buying control of hundreds of radio stations. And the FCC, which has got 3 Democrats, is allowing something like this to happen, that it's completely unprecedented. Again, this needs more attention. This absolutely needs more attention. And George Soros should not be allowed to get control of those radio stations until after the election. This seems like a very obvious election interference case, right? But again, since Democrats are doing it, rules for thee, not for me. But guys, hey, that's all I got for in this video here. I will see y'all in the next one. Like, share, subscribe. Y'all have a wonderful night. Peace.